Hey guys, tonight we drift across the endless Pacific, where ancient Polynesian navigators sailed beneath a dome of twinkling stars, their only map to distant islands. Picture yourself on a creaking wooden canoe, the cool night air brushing your face, the ocean's gentle slap against the hull, lulling you into a trance. These voyagers centuries ago didn't have compasses or GPS, just their eyes, their stories, and a knack for reading the cosmos. You're out here, far from land, with nothing but starlight to guide you. Spoiler, you probably won't survive this without their genius. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on a sandy shore, somewhere in the vast Polynesian Triangle. Think Hawaii, New Zealand, Easter Island, all connected by daring sea voyages. It's around 1000 CE, and the night sky above you is a masterpiece. No light pollution, just a velvet black canvas splashed with stars, brighter than you've ever seen. You squint, trying to make sense of the patterns. These aren't just pretty lights. They're the GPS of the ancient world. Polynesian navigators, known as wayfinders, could read these stars like a book, sailing thousands of miles with pinpoint accuracy. Historians say they colonized the Pacific's farthest reaches by 1200 CE, from Samoa to the Marquesas, using nothing but natural cues. That's mainstream. Their voyages shaped one of the largest cultural expansions in human history. But here's the quirky bit. You're not just looking at stars, you're learning their nicknames. Polynesians didn't call them Sirius or Vega. They had names like Hokupa, the fixed star, that's Polaris to you, or Ke Makau Nui o Maui, Maui's great fishhook, which we know as Scorpius. Each name carried a story, a myth woven into the sky. You try memorizing them, but your modern brain's already spinning. Good luck keeping up with a wayfinder's memory. Historians still argue whether these star names were universal across Polynesia or varied by island, since oral traditions shifted over time. You feel the weight of that debate as you stare upward, wondering how anyone could remember it all. The air smells of salt and damp wood. You're barefoot, toes sinking into the cool sand, as a wayfinder nearby points to a cluster of stars low on the horizon. He's explaining zenith stars, ones that sit directly above an island at certain times. If you sail toward a star like Hokulea, Arcturus, you'll hit Hawaii dead on. Miss it by a degree though, and you're lost in the Pacific's vastness. You chuckle nervously. Your phone's GPS can't even get you to a new coffee shop without a hiccup. These guys, they're eyeballing constellations to cross oceans. You try to mimic the wayfinder's calm, tracing lines between stars with your finger, but it's humbling. The sky's too big, too alive. You notice the Milky Way, a glowing river Polynesians called Te Waka Orangi, the canoe of the sky. It's not just poetic, it's a navigational tool, a highway of light pointing toward distant lands. You imagine yourself paddling beneath it, your canoe bobbing on gentle waves. The wayfinder's voice is low, rhythmic, almost hypnotic as he recites star paths, sequences of rising and setting stars that mark a route. You're starting to get why this is sleep-friendly history. His cadence is like a lullaby. But then he tosses in a joke. Miss the star and your fish food. You laugh, but the vast ocean around you makes it less funny. You're not alone on this beach. Other apprentices are watching, learning, their eyes flicking between the sky and the wayfinder, Training like this took years, decades even. You're just dipping your toes in, but you feel the pull of their world. The stars aren't just dots, they're ancestors, gods, stories. You try to spot Matariki, the Pleiades, a cluster tied to planting seasons and voyages. In Maori culture, its rising marked the new year. You wonder if you'd have the patience to learn this, or if you just nap under the palms instead. Honestly, you're leaning toward the nap. The Wayfinder gestures toward the horizon, where a faint star winks. He says it's a guide to an island you've never heard of, maybe Rarotonga or Tahiti. You squint, trying to see what he sees, but it's just a speck. That's the magic, though. These navigators turn specks into destinations. You're starting to relax, the ocean's rhythm syncing with your breath. The stars feel closer now, like they're whispering secrets. You're not sure if you're learning or just drifting, but either way, it's working. You're no longer on the beach. Now you're knee-deep in a bustling Polynesian village, surrounded by the scent of freshly cut wood and the rhythmic thump of adzes shaping timber. It's dawn, and you're helping build a double-hulled canoe, the kind that'll carry you across the Pacific under those stars you were staring at last night. The air hums with activity. Craftsmen chatter, tools clink, and somewhere nearby, a pig snorts, probably unimpressed by your woodworking skills. Spoiler, you're not cut out for this. Your hands are soft, used to swiping screens, not carving logs. But these canoe builders, they're artists, turning trees into vessels that defy the ocean's wrath. The mainstream fact here is that Polynesian double-hulled canoes, called Wa'a Kaulua in Hawaiian or Vaka in other dialects, were engineering marvels. By 1000 CE, they were the backbone of Pacific exploration, carrying families, crops, and even chickens across thousands of miles. These weren't flimsy rafts. They were stable, with two hulls lashed together, often 50 feet long, built to handle rogue waves and long voyages. You're hauling a massive koa log, sweat beading on your forehead, as a master builder shows you how to shape it. The wood's grain is tough, and your arms ache just watching him swing the adze with precision. Here's the quirky tidbit. They didn't just use any tree. Builders would trek into the forest, chanting prayers to the god Tane to pick the perfect tree, sometimes waiting days for a sign, like a bird landing on a branch. You smirk, imagining yourself wandering the woods, muttering to trees, hoping a pigeon gives you the green light. Historians still argue whether these rituals were purely spiritual or a practical way to scout healthy timber. Maybe both. You're not sure, but you're starting to respect the patience it took. You're assigned to sand the hull with a piece of coral. Yes, coral, because sandpaper's not a thing yet. It's slow, meditative work, the kind that makes your modern brain itch for a power tool. The builder next to you laughs at your clumsy grip, saying, "You sand like you're tickling it." You chuckle, but he's right. Your technique's awful. The canoe's taking shape, though. Two sleek hulls connected by sturdy cross beams. You run your hand along the wood, feeling its smoothness, imagining it slicing through waves. The builders weave coconut fiber ropes, called senet, to lash it all together. You try your hand at twisting the fibers, but your rope looks like a toddler's craft project. The double hull design is genius. You learn it balances the canoe, letting it carry heavy loads without tipping. They'd pack taro, breadfruit, and dried fish, plus crew and families, sometimes 20 people. You picture yourself crammed in, praying you don't get seasick. The builders add a platform between the hulls, where you'd sleep under a woven mat, stars overhead. It's cozy in theory, but you're already dreading the lack of legroom. A kid nearby, barely 10, is better at tying knots than you. He grins, tossing you a coconut husk to practice with. "Keep up, land dweller," he teases. You laugh, but you're definitely the weak link here. The village around you buzzes with purpose. Women weave sails from pandanus leaves, their fingers flying faster than you can follow. The sails are triangular, catching wind like a kite. You're told they're tough enough to last months at sea, which is good, because you're not sewing a new one mid-ocean. The builders talk about balance, how the canoe must sit just right in the water. Too heavy and you're sunk. Too light and the waves toss you like a toy. You're starting to get why every detail matters. One wrong knot and you're shark bait. You step back, admiring the canoe's sleek lines. It's not just a boat, it's a lifeline, a floating home. The builders chant as they work, a low hum that syncs with the ocean's distant rhythm. You're sweating, your hands blistered, but there's something soothing about the repetition. Chop, sand, weave, repeat. You imagine the canoe finished, gliding under that starry sky you saw last night. The thought calms you, even as a splinter jabs your finger. You wince, and the master builder chuckles. The sea's tougher than that. You're not sure if he's joking or warning you, but you're already half asleep from the village's gentle chaos. You're no longer in the village, surrounded by wood shavings and the clatter of tools. Now, you're sitting cross-legged on a woven mat under the shade of a palm tree, as a master navigator looms over you, his voice steady but firm. It's your first day as an apprentice wayfinder, and you're about to learn how Polynesians navigated oceans without a single gadget. The air is warm, thick with the scent of frangipani, and the distant crash of waves sets a rhythm that's already making your eyelids heavy. You're clutching a piece of charcoal and a bark slab, ready to take notes, but honestly, you're wondering if you'll survive this crash course in celestial navigation. The mainstream fact is that Polynesian navigators were trained from childhood, often starting as young as 7, to memorize star patterns, ocean currents, and wind shifts. By 1000 CE, this knowledge let them sail across the Pacific, hitting tiny islands with eerie precision. You're trying to keep up as the master, a grizzled man with eyes like polished obsidian, points to the sky. He's not teaching you math or maps. He's teaching you to feel the world. Stars, winds, waves. You scribble a star's name, Hokupa'a, but your charcoal snaps. The master sighs, muttering something about land lubbers. You grin sheepishly. Your note-taking skills are as shaky as your sea legs. Here's the quirky bit. Apprentices sometimes learned navigation through chants that doubled as lullabies. These rhythmic songs packed star paths, island names, and sailing tips into verses you could hum in your sleep. You try repeating one. Hokulea rises, steer to the left, Rarotonga waits. It's catchy, but you butcher the pronunciation, earning a smirk from a nearby kid who's clearly been chanting this since diapers. Historians still argue whether these chants were mostly mnemonic or partly spiritual, meant to invoke gods like Tane or Maui. You're not sure, but the melodies stuck in your head, lulling you into a daze. The master kneels beside you, pointing at the horizon where last night's stars would rise. He's teaching you about star compasses, a mental map where you divide the horizon into 32 points, each tied to a star's rising or setting. You imagine a giant clock face in the sky, with stars as hour markers. It's elegant but overwhelming. You're still trying to remember which way's north. He tells you to focus on Matariki, the Pleiades, a cluster that signals planting and sailing seasons. You nod, but your modern brain's screaming for a spreadsheet to keep this straight. The master chuckles. You think too hard. The stars will whisper if you listen. You laugh. Whispering stars sound like a fairy tale, but you're starting to believe him. You practice naming stars, your voice stumbling over Polynesian syllables. The master corrects you gently, his tone like a parent reading a bedtime story. He points out Ke Macau Nui o Maui, Scorpius, curling like a fishhook in the sky. You're told it's tied to the demigod Maui, who supposedly fished up islands. You smirk, imagining Maui as a cosmic fisherman, trolling for land. The master's lessons mix hard facts with stories, and you're not sure where science ends and myth begins. That's the point, though. Wayfinding was as much art as skill. You try visualizing the star compass again, but your mind wanders to how cozy this mat feels under the palm's shade. Nearby, other apprentices are quizzing each other, their voices a soft hum. You catch a snippet about zenith stars, those that sit straight above an island like a cosmic pin on a map. If you sail toward Hokulea at the right time, you'll hit Hawaii. Miss it, and you're adrift, probably cursing your lack of focus. You stifle a yawn, not because you're bored, but because the master's voice is so darn soothing. He tosses in a dry joke. Forget the stars, and you'll paddle to nowhere. You chuckle, but the thought of being lost at sea makes your stomach flip. The lesson shifts to memorizing star paths, sequences of stars that guide you from one island to another. You're told to picture them like stepping stones across the ocean. You try, but your brain's still stuck on that lullaby chant. The master notices your drooping eyes and grins. Good. Sleepy heads learn best. You're not sure if he's serious, but the gentle sway of the palm fronds and the distant waves are pulling you under. You're starting to get why this training feels like a ritual. It's not just about stars, it's about trusting the world to guide you. You're out at sea now, sprawled on the platform of a double-hulled canoe, the one you helped build with those coral-sanded hands. The ocean stretches endlessly around you, a deep blue that's both calming and unnerving. Above, the night sky unfurls like a map, stars blazing brighter than any city light you've ever seen. You're trying to navigate, just like the Wayfinder taught you, tracking constellations to cross the vast Pacific. The canoe rocks gently, the creak of wood and the slap of waves against the hull, blending into a rhythm that's practically begging you to doze off. But you're supposed to stay sharp. Good luck with that, city dweller. The mainstream fact is that Polynesian navigators used a star compass system, mentally dividing the horizon into 32 segments, each tied to specific stars' rising or setting points. By 1000 CE, this let them sail precise routes across thousands of miles, hitting specks of land like Rarotonga or Tahiti without modern tools. You're staring at the horizon, trying to spot Hokulea, Arcturus, a key star for Hawaii. The master navigator, standing at the canoe's stern, points to it, low and reddish. You nod, but your eyes keep drifting to the Milky Way's glow. Te Waka o Rangi, the canoe of the sky. It's mesmerizing, and you're half convinced you'd steer into a daydream if left alone. Here's the quirky tidbit. Navigators didn't just follow stars, they'd sometimes lie flat on the canoe's platform, feeling the boat sway to confirm their course. You try it, stretching out, the wood cool against your back. The canoe's motion feels like a lullaby, but you're supposed to sense subtle shifts in the waves. You laugh to yourself. Your only sensing skill is knowing when your coffee's gone cold. Historians still argue whether this body-based navigation was as critical as star reading, or just a backup trick. You're not sure, but lying here, rocking with the sea, you get why it worked. It's like the ocean's whispering directions. You sit up, squinting at the star compass in your mind. The master's voice drifts over, calm but insistent, naming stars. Matariki, Pleiades, Ke Makau Nui, O Maui, Scorpius. He's teaching you to track their arcs across the sky. Each star rises at a specific point, guiding you toward an island. You're supposed to remember which ones set towards Samoa or rise toward the Marquesas. It's like learning a new language, except the alphabet's in the sky and your exam's a 1,000-mile voyage. You mutter the names under your breath, stumbling over the syllables. The master chuckles. You sound like a lost gull. You grin. Fair point, but you're trying. The canoe's sail flaps above, woven pandanus catching the breeze. You notice the crew adjusting it, their movements smooth, like they've done this forever. You're just a passenger, clutching a rope to look useful. The master points to a faint star, Manayakalani, part of Maui's fishhook. He says it's a guide to distant lands, maybe Easter Island. You try to focus, but the star's so dim, you're not sure if it's real or just your eyes playing tricks. You're starting to get why wayfinders train for decades. Your brain's already begging for a nap. The ocean's rhythm doesn't help. It's like a giant rocking chair. You glance at the crew, their faces lit by starlight. They're calm, joking softly about a fish that got away during dinner prep. You join in, asking if they'll name a star after it. They laugh, and one says, only if it swims to Fiji first. The banter's light, but you feel the weight of their skill. These guys could find a pinprick of land in this endless sea, while you'd probably sail in circles. The master shifts to zenith stars, ones that sit directly above an island at certain times. If you keep Hokupa'a, Polaris, overhead, you're near the equator. You try picturing it, but your mind drifts to that chant you learned, its melody looping softly. The stars feel alive now, not just points of light, but old friends with names and stories. You're starting to relax, the canoe sway sinking with your breath. The master's voice is a low hum, guiding you through the star compass again. You're not sure if you're learning or just sinking into the moment, but the ocean's vastness doesn't scare you anymore. It's like the stars are holding your hand, whispering, you're on the right path. You yawn, the night air cool on your face, and for a second, you almost believe you could steer this canoe yourself. You're still on that double-hulled canoe, the Pacific stretching around you like a liquid desert, the stars above your only guide. But now, the master navigator's got you focusing on something new, the ocean itself. You're crouched near the canoe's edge, peering into the dark waves, trying to read their patterns like a book. The air smells of salt and damp pandanus, and the gentle roll of the canoe is so soothing you're fighting to keep your eyes open. The crew's quiet, their soft murmurs blending with the water's rhythmic slap. You're supposed to be learning how to find land by feeling the sea's pulse, but honestly, you're wondering if you'll just nap against the mast instead. The mainstream fact is that Polynesian navigators used wave patterns, called swell navigation, to detect distant islands. By 1000 CE, they'd mastered reading subtle changes in ocean swells, long, rolling waves shaped by far-off land or storms. You're trying to spot these swells now, the master pointing at ripples that look, to you, like every other wave. He's patient, explaining how swells bend around islands, creating patterns you can feel through the canoe's hull. You press your hand to the wood, hoping for some mystical vibe, but all you feel is a splinter waiting to happen. The master smirks. City hands, huh? You laugh. Yep, your calluses are from scrolling, not sailing. Here's the quirky tidbit. Navigators sometimes gauged swells by lying on their stomachs, faces inches from the water, to watch reflections of stars on the waves. You try it, sprawling awkwardly across the platform, your nose practically kissing the sea. The starlight dances on the surface, and you're supposed to see how the swells disrupt it, but mostly you're just dizzy. Historians still argue whether this was a primary technique or a last resort when clouds hid the stars. You're not sure, but it's oddly calming, like staring into a campfire. You could fall asleep like this, face down, if the crew didn't keep chuckling at your technique. The master kneels beside you, pointing to a swell rolling from the east. He says it's shaped by an island, maybe hundreds of miles away. You squint, trying to see what he sees, but it's like reading tea leaves. He explains that swells come in sets, primary, secondary, even tertiary, each with a different rhythm. You're supposed to feel them through the canoe's sway, like a heartbeat. You close your eyes, letting the motion rock you. It's hypnotic, and you're starting to get why this is sleep-friendly history. The master's voice is low, almost a whisper, as he describes how swells talk to each other, bending around atolls or reefs. You nod, half listening, half drifting. You sit up, gripping the canoe's edge, and notice the crew adjusting the sail. They're watching the waves too, their eyes sharp despite the late hour. You try mimicking their focus, but your mind wanders to that chant you learned back on shore, the one about Hokulea guiding you to Rarotonga. You hum it softly, and a crew member grins. Keep singing, you'll scare the fish. You laugh, but you're secretly glad for the distraction. The ocean's vastness is overwhelming, and these wave patterns feel like a puzzle you'll never solve. The master tosses in another joke. Waves don't lie, but your eyes might. You smirk, wondering if he's calling you out, or just keeping you awake. The canoe rocks gently, and you're starting to sense something, a faint shift in the swell, like a hiccup in the rhythm. The master nods, noticing your focus. He says it's a reflection swell, bouncing off land you can't see yet. You're skeptical, but intrigued, imagining an island out there, waiting. You remember those zenith stars from earlier, how they pinpointed islands. Now, the waves are adding clues, like a cosmic treasure hunt. You're not sure if you're getting it, or just caught up in the moment, but the sea's rhythm is pulling you in. Your eyelids droop, the master's voice blending with the wave's soft pulse. You glance at the crew, their faces calm under the starlight. They're not just reading waves, they're feeling the ocean's mood. You try again, pressing your palm to the hull, letting the canoe's sway guide you. It's like a dance, slow and deliberate. You're not a wayfinder yet, far from it. But for a second, you feel connected to the sea, the stars, the canoe. The master's voice fades into a soothing drone, and you're sinking deeper into the moment, the Pacific cradling you like a giant, salty lullaby. You're still bobbing on that double-hulled canoe, the Pacific's gentle swells rocking you like a cradle under a star-strewn sky. The crew's settled into a quiet rhythm, their silhouettes barely visible against the moonlight. But now, the mood shifts. You're invited to join a sacred ceremony, one that honors the Polynesian sea gods before the voyage continues. The air feels heavier, thick with salt and the faint scent of burning coconut husks. A woven mat is spread on the canoe's platform, and you're sitting cross-legged, trying not to fidget as the master navigator prepares an offering. The ocean's hum is soothing, but you're nervous. Ceremonies aren't your thing, and you're half expecting to mess up some ancient ritual. The mainstream fact is that Polynesian navigation was deeply spiritual, with rituals dedicated to gods like Kanaloa, the Hawaiian deity of the ocean, or Tangaroa in other Polynesian cultures performed before major voyages. Around 1000 CE, these ceremonies ensured safe passage, blending practical preparation with divine blessings. The master, his face lined by years at sea, holds a small bundle of taro leaves and chants in a low, resonant voice. You're handed a smooth stone, cool to the touch, and told to place it on the mat as an offering. You fumble, nearly dropping it, and a crew member stifles a laugh. "Land dweller's luck," he whispers. You grin, but you're definitely out of your depth here. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some ceremonies involve tossing offerings, like a single feather or a fish, into the sea to bribe the waves for calm weather. You're clutching your stone, wondering if you're supposed to chuck it overboard. The master shakes his head, amused, as if reading your mind. Historians still argue whether these offerings were symbolic gestures or believed to literally sway the gods' moods. You're not sure, but as the chant fills the air, you feel a strange calm, like the ocean's listening. The master's chant grows softer, weaving names of gods, Kanaloa, Maui, Tane, into a melody that feels older than the stars. You're told to focus on the sea, to speak to it through your thoughts. You try, feeling a bit silly, imagining a conversation with the waves. "Please don't sink us," you think, and the crew's quiet chuckles suggest you said it aloud. You laugh too, but the ceremony's pulling you in. The master sprinkles seawater over the mat, and you mimic him, flicking droplets with your fingers. It's oddly satisfying, like a kid playing in a puddle, but with 1,000 years of tradition behind it. You glance at the crew, their faces solemn yet relaxed, eyes half closed as they join the chant. The offering stone feels heavier now, like it carries the weight of their trust in the gods. You place it carefully, earning a nod from the master. He explains that Kanaloa guides navigators, his spirit in the waves and stars. You remember those swells you tried reading earlier, how they seemed to whisper directions. Now, you're wondering if that was Kanaloa's doing, or just your sleepy imagination. The chant shifts, slower now, and you're sinking deeper into the moment, the canoe's sway sinking with your breath. The master lights a small fire on a clay dish, the coconut husk smoldering with a sweet, earthy scent. You're told it's to honor the ancestors, whose knowledge lights the way like those stars you've been tracking. You think back to Hokulea and the star compass, how they guided you here. The ceremony feels like a bridge between the sky, sea, and stories. You're starting to get why it's sacred, not just for gods, but for the bond it builds among the crew. The master jokes softly, "Don't fall asleep yet, Kanaloa's watching." You smile, but the fire's glow and the chant's rhythm are making it hard to stay awake. The offering's complete, and the crew scatters leaves into the sea, their green shapes vanishing into the dark water. You follow suit, tossing a leaf, watching it drift. The master says it's a promise to return safely, to the gods and the islands waiting. You're not sure if you believe in sea gods, but the act feels right, grounding. The ocean's vastness doesn't scare you now. It's like a partner in this journey. The chant fades, leaving only the waves' soft pulse. You lean back, the mat cool against your skin, and let the canoe's gentle rock pull you closer to sleep. You're back on the double-hulled canoe, the Pacific's gentle sway lulling you as the stars twinkle above. The ceremony's glow still lingers in your mind, but now the master navigators got you handling something more tangible. The tools of wayfinding. You're sitting on the canoe's platform, a woven mat under you, clutching a strange bundle of sticks tied with coconut fiber. The air smells of salt and dried seaweed, and the crew's quiet, focused, as they pass around other odd implements. The ocean's rhythm is hypnotic, and you're fighting to stay alert. These tools are your lifeline, but they look like something a kid would build for a science fair. The mainstream fact is that Polynesian navigators used physical aids like stick charts, called matang or rebolib in the Marshall Islands, to map ocean swells and island locations. By 1000 CE, these tools helped wayfinders visualize wave patterns and currents, complementing their star-based navigation. The master hands you a matang, a grid of palm sticks and shells representing swells bending around islands. You turn it over, puzzled. It's not a map in the modern sense, more like a tactile guide. You fumble, nearly dropping it, and a crew member snickers, "Don't lose our islands." You laugh, but your modern brain's screaming for a GPS app. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some navigators used polished stones or shells as star markers, holding them up to align with constellations for precise bearings. The master gives you a smooth cowrie shell, saying it's for sighting Hokulea, Arcturus. You try, squinting through the shell's slit, but you're more likely to poke your eye than find Hawaii. Historians still argue whether these tools were widespread or unique to certain islands, like the Marshalls or Carolines. You're not sure, but holding the shell feels oddly grounding, like a tiny piece of the ocean's wisdom. You study the matang again, tracing the sticks with your finger. The master explains how each curve mimics a swell's path, how shells mark atolls or reefs. You're supposed to memorize it, but it's like learning a new alphabet in the dark. You think back to those wave patterns you felt earlier, the swells whispering of distant land. The matang makes them real, a map you can touch. You try picturing the ocean's layout, but your mind wanders to how cozy this mat feels. The master notices your drooping eyes and chuckles. Tools won't help if you're snoring. You grin, fair, but the canoe's rocking isn't helping. The crew passes around other aids, a gourd filled with sand to track time by pouring, a knotted cord for measuring distances. You try the cord, counting knots like a rosary, but you lose track at 5. A young crew member, barely a teen, shows you up, tying knots faster than you can blink. "Practice, land dweller," he teases. You laugh, but you're secretly jealous of his skill. The master demonstrates how to use the gourd, letting sand trickle while watching a star's arc. It's low-tech but precise, like a sundial for the night. You're starting to get why these tools were sacred. Each one's a piece of the puzzle that kept voyagers alive. You hold the matang again, feeling its weight. It's not just sticks, it's years of knowledge, passed down like those chants you learned. You remember the ceremony, the offering to Kanaloa, and how it tied you to the sea. These tools do the same, linking you to the stars, waves, and islands. You try aligning the cowrie shell with Matariki, Pleiades, and for a second, you think you've got it, until the canoe tilts and you nearly tumble. The crew laughs and you join in, but you're starting to respect this craft. The master's voice is soft, guiding you through the matang's patterns, and it's like a bedtime story in stick form. The ocean's hum surrounds you, blending with the crew's quiet chatter. You're clutching the matang, trying to memorize one swell pattern, but the canoe's sway is pulling you under. The stars above feel closer now, like they're watching your clumsy efforts. You're not a wayfinder yet, but holding these tools, you feel a flicker of their world, practical, spiritual, alive. The master's voice fades into a soothing drone, and you lean back, the mat cool against your skin, the Pacific cradling you as you drift closer to sleep. You're still swaying on that double-hulled canoe, the Pacific stretching endlessly around you, its waves whispering secrets you're only half catching. The stars above are your map, the Matang stick chart still clutched in your hands. But now the mood shifts, trouble's brewing. Dark clouds roll in, blotting out Hokulea and the rest of your starry guides. The wind picks up, stinging your face with salt spray, and the canoe lurches as swells grow choppy. You're on an island-hopping voyage, aiming for a speck of land you've never seen, and the ocean's testing you. The crew's tense but calm, their hands steady on the sail. You, though? You're gripping the platform, wondering if you'll survive this storm or end up as fish food. The mainstream fact is that Polynesian navigators faced brutal challenges, storms, rogue waves, and disorienting cloud cover, while sailing the Pacific around 1000 CE. Their ability to find tiny islands, sometimes just a few miles wide, relied on resilience and razor-sharp skills honed over generations. The master navigators at the stern, shouting orders over the wind, his eyes scanning the waves for clues. You're trying to help, holding a rope that's probably decorative for all you know. The sail flaps wildly and you're soaked, your modern sensibilities whining about the lack of a weather app. The master notices your panic and grins. Scared yet, land dweller? You force a laugh, but your stomach's doing flips. Here's the quirky tidbit. When clouds hid the stars, navigators sometimes relied on birds to find land. Seabirds like terns or noddies that flew toward islands at dusk. You're squinting through the rain, hoping for a bird to save you, but all you see is gray. Historians still argue whether bird watching was a primary navigation tool or a desperate backup when swells and stars failed. You're not sure, but you're praying for a turn to swoop in like a feathered GPS. The crew's scanning too, their calm focus making you feel like the weakest link. The canoe pitches, and you cling to the platform, the matang now stashed safely under a mat. You remember those wave patterns you studied, how they bent around islands. The masters shouting about a reflection swell, a wave bouncing off land you can't see. You try feeling it through the canoe's hull, like you learned, but it's hard with the storm tossing you like a salad. You think back to the ceremony for Kanaloa, the sea god. Maybe that offering wasn't enough. You mutter a quick apology to the ocean, half joking, and a crew member catches it, chuckling. Keep praying, it's cheaper than sinking. You laugh, but the storm's roar keeps you humble. The master shifts tactics, pointing to the wind's direction. He's using it to guess where the clouds might break, revealing stars again. You're impressed but overwhelmed. Your only wind-reading skill is knowing when to close a window. The crew adjusts the sail, their movements quick yet smooth, like they've danced with storms before. You try helping, pulling a rope, but you're about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. The master explains how storms test a wayfinder's memory. Without stars, you rely on mental maps of currents and swells. You try picturing the matang's patterns, but your brain's stuck on not throwing up. The rain eases slightly, and you spot a faint star peeking through the clouds. Maybe Matariki. You point, hopeful, but the master shakes his head. It's too brief to trust. You're starting to get why wayfinding was a lifelong craft. The crew's calm is infectious, though, and you relax a bit. The canoes sway less terrifying now. You think of those chants you learned, their rhythm syncing with the waves. You hum one softly, and a crew member joins in, his voice a low hum over the wind. It's soothing, like a lullaby fighting the storm's chaos. The master spots something, a naughty bird banking toward the west. He nods, adjusting the canoe's course. You're skeptical, but follow his gaze, hoping lands close. The swells feel different now, steadier, like the ocean's calming down. You're not sure if it's the bird, the swells, or just wishful thinking, but you're clinging to hope. The master's voice is steady, guiding the crew, and you lean back. The platform's wood cool against your soaked skin. The storm's still there, but its edge is softening, and the canoe's gentle rock is pulling you towards sleep, even as your heart races. You're still rocking on that double-hulled canoe, the storm's chaos fading into a steady rhythm of waves as the clouds part, revealing patches of starry sky. The tension from the squall lingers, but now you're focused on something more grounded. Food. You're crouched on the platform, helping the crew prepare provisions for the long voyage ahead. The air smells of dried fish and roasted taro, mingled with the ever-present salt of the Pacific. Your hands are clumsy, fumbling with a woven basket, and the crew's watching you with amused patience. You're not exactly a master chef, and out here, with no corner store in sight, you're hoping you don't ruin dinner. The mainstream fact is that Polynesian voyagers, around 1000 CE, carried carefully preserved foods like dried fish, taro, breadfruit, and coconuts to sustain weeks-long journeys across the Pacific. These provisions were vital for colonizing distant islands, ensuring crews didn't starve while seeking new homes. You're slicing a dried fish with a sharp shell, trying not to butcher it, pun intended. The master navigator, now lounging nearby, explains how they'd smoke fish over coconut husks for months of shelf life. You're impressed but distracted, your cuts uneven, and a crew member teases, "You're feeding the sharks, not us." You laugh, but you're secretly worried he's right. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some crews fermented breadfruit in pits, creating a pungent paste called poi that could last years. Think ancient astronaut food. You're offered a whiff of something similar, and it's intense, like socks left in a gym bag. You grimace, and the crew roars with laughter. Historians still argue whether poi was a staple for voyages or more of a ceremonial food saved for land. You're not sure, but you're glad you're sticking to fish tonight. The smell's enough to make you reconsider your career as a sea chef. You shift to cracking open a coconut, spilling half the water on yourself. The crew doesn't let that slide, one joking, "You're watering the ocean now?" You chuckle, wiping your hands on your already salty tunic. The master shows you how to scrape the coconut meat, mixing it with taro for a starchy mash. It's bland but filling, the kind of food that keeps you going, not thrilled. You imagine weeks of this, no pizza delivery in sight, and wonder how they stayed sane. The answer's in the routine. Preparing food was a group effort, a ritual that kept the crew tight. You're starting to feel that bond, even if your slicing skills are a group embarrassment. The platform's crowded with baskets, dried fish, taro wrapped in leaves, even some dried seaweed that's surprisingly tasty. You try packing a basket mimicking the crew's neat folds, but yours looks like a laundry pile. The master explains how they'd ration carefully, 1 fish per person per day, maybe less if the voyage dragged. You think back to the storm, how hunger could have made it worse. Those wave-reading skills and star compasses you learned earlier, useless if you're too weak to steer. You're starting to respect the planning behind these trips, every bite calculated like a star's arc. You glance at this crew, their hands moving with practiced ease. A young woman shows you how to tie leaves around taro to keep it fresh. She's quick, her fingers dancing, and you're painfully slow by comparison. You try joking, "I'll stick to eating, not packing." She grins, handing you another leaf to try again. The camaraderie's warm, like the ceremony for Sanaloa you joined earlier, binding you to this floating family. The master adds that food wasn't just fuel. It was a link to home, a taste of the islands they left behind. You nod, chewing a piece of dried fish, its salty tang grounding you. The canoe's sway is gentle now, the stars peeking through clouds like old friends. You're getting the hang of this. Sort of. The food prep's repetitive, soothing, like kneading dough or folding laundry. Your eyelids droop as you pack another basket, the crew's soft chatter blending with the waves. You think of that matang stick chart, its patterns echoing the order of this meal prep. The master's voice drifts over, explaining how to store coconuts safely. His tone is calming as the ocean's hum. You're sinking into the moment, the Pacific cradling you, the food's simple comfort pulling you closer to sleep. You're still swaying on the double-hulled canoe, the Pacific's gentle rhythm rocking you as the scent of dried fish and taro lingers from your meal prep. The stars are back, twinkling through scattered clouds, and the crew settled into a quiet calm, their silhouettes soft against the moonlight. Now, the master navigator pulls you aside, his voice low, to share a lesser-known truth. Women were vital to Polynesian wayfinding, not just as passengers, but as navigators in their own right. You're sitting on the woven mat, the cool wood of the platform under you, trying to wrap your head around this. Your modern assumptions are crumbling, and honestly, you're a bit embarrassed you didn't see it coming. The mainstream fact is that while Polynesian navigation is often portrayed as male-dominated, women across the Pacific, around 1000 CE, played key roles in voyages, sometimes guiding canoes using the same star-based techniques as men. You're listening to the master describe a legendary navigator, a woman from Samoa who charted paths to Fiji using Matariki, Pleiades. You're impressed but nervous, clutching a coconut fiber rope like it's a lifeline. The master notices your wide eyes and chuckles. Thought only men read stars, huh? You laugh, caught. You're a land dweller with a lot to learn. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some women navigators used woven mats as teaching tools, laying them out to mimic star patterns or wave flows, like a softer version of the matang stick chart you fumbled with earlier. The master points to the mat you're sitting on, saying it could double as a star map in a pinch. You try picturing it, but your brain's stuck on how you'd probably weave a knot instead of a constellation. Historians still argue whether these mats were widely used or specific to certain islands, like Tonga or the Marquesas. You're not sure, but the idea of a mat as a cosmic guide is oddly comforting. You glance at the crew, noticing a woman adjusting the sail with practiced ease. She's young, maybe 20, but her hands move like she's been at sea forever. The master says she's training to lead voyages, memorizing star paths like the ones you struggled with. You try asking her a question, but your tongue trips over Hokulea's pronunciation, and she grins, correcting you gently. "Keep practicing, or you'll sail to the moon," she teases. You laugh, but you're starting to see her as the real expert here, not just a helper. You think back to the food prep, how women's hands shaped the voyage's survival. This feels like an extension, women shaping the journey itself. The master explains that women often learned navigation through family lines, mothers passing chants to daughters, just like the lullaby-like songs you heard. You try humming one, the rhythm soothing, but you're off key, and the woman navigator smirks, "Stick to paddling." You chuckle, but you're in awe. Her memory holds dozens of stars, currents, and islands. The master adds that women sometimes led ceremonies, like the one for Kanaloa you joined, their voices carrying the same weight as men's. You remember that chant, its cadence pulling you closer to sleep, and realize it might have been a woman's voice guiding you. You're handed a small shell, like the one you used to sight stars, and told to practice aligning it with Ke Makau Nui o Maui, Scorpius. You fumble, the shell slipping, and the woman navigator steadies your hand, her touch calm but firm. She shows you how to hold it, her patience like the ocean's steady pulse. You're starting to get why these skills cross genders. Wayfinding was about survival, not status. The canoe's sway feels softer now, the stars brighter, as if they're nodding approval. You think of the matang, the swells, the chants. All tools women wielded too, binding the crew to the sea. The master's voice is a low hum, recounting stories of women who sailed to new islands, their names half lost to time. You're sinking into the mat, the Pacific's rhythm wrapping around you. The woman navigator's still there, her silhouette strong against the stars, and you feel a quiet respect. You're not a wayfinder, but for a moment, you're part of their world, carried by their skill and stories. The ocean's gentle rock and the crew's soft murmurs pull you closer to sleep, the stars whispering that you're on the right path. You're still drifting on that double-hulled canoe, the Pacific's gentle waves lapping at the hull as the stars above pulse with stories. The night's grown quieter, the crew's chatter fading into soft hums, and you're nestled on the woven mat, the one that might double as a star map, if you could ever figure it out. The master navigator's voice pulls you back, low and rhythmic, as he starts weaving tales of mythical guides. Stars that aren't just lights, but ancestors and gods, guiding Polynesian voyagers across the sea. The air smells of salt and faint coconut smoke, and the canoe's sway is so soothing, you're half tempted to curl up and let the stories carry you to sleep. The mainstream fact is that Polynesian navigation, around 1000 CE, was deeply tied to mythology, with stars seen as divine ancestors or deities who guided canoes to new islands. You're listening to the master describe Ka Makau Nui o Maui, the great fishhook of Maui, Scorpius to you, said to have pulled islands from the sea. You're clutching a rope, trying to stay focused, but the story's so vivid you're picturing Maui himself, fishing up land with a starry hook. The master notices your dreamy look and chuckles. Don't fall into Maui's net yet. You laugh, but your modern brain's struggling to keep up with these cosmic tales. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Polynesian stories claimed navigators could talk to stars, asking them for directions through dreams or trances. You're skeptical, raising an eyebrow, and the master grins, saying it's less about magic and more about trusting the sky's patterns. You try imagining a chat with Matariki, Pleiades, but all you get is a mental dial tone. Historians still argue whether these dream conversations were spiritual rituals or a way to process memorized star paths during sleep. You're not sure, but the idea of stars whispering back is oddly lulling, like a bedtime story from the cosmos. The master leans back, pointing to Te Waka Orangi, the Milky Way, called the the canoe of the sky. He says it's a pathway for ancestors, guiding lost sailors home. You stare at its glowing arc, feeling small but connected, like you're part of something ancient. You think back to the Matang stick chart and the swells you felt, how they tied you to the sea. Now, the stars feel like family, each with a name and story. The master tells of Hokupa'a, Polaris, the fixed star, a steady guide for northern routes. You try spotting it, but your eyes keep drifting, the canoe's rock pulling you into a haze. A crew member, the woman navigator from earlier, joins in, sharing a tale about Matariki as a cluster of sisters who signal the new year. You're charmed, imagining stars as siblings bickering over who shines brightest. You joke, "Sounds like my family reunions." The crew laughs, and she adds that Matariki's rising meant it was time to sail or plant. You're starting to see how these myths weren't just stories. They were navigation tools, calendars, and survival guides rolled into one. You hum that chant you learned, the one about Hokulea, and it feels like a prayer now, tying you to these starry ancestors. The master shifts to a story about Maui slowing the sun to lengthen days, giving navigators more time to sail. You smirk, wishing you could slow time to catch up on this cosmic lore. The crew's quiet now, their faces soft in the starlight, listening like it's the first time they've heard these tales. You remember the ceremony for Kanaloa, how it bound you to the sea and gods. These myths do the same, linking you to the sky. You're not sure if you believe in starry ancestors, but the stories wrap around you like a warm blanket, the ocean's rhythm amplifying their pull. You lean back, the mat cool against your skin, and let the master's voice wash over you. He's describing a star as a lost voyager, forever fixed in the sky to guide others. The tale's rhythm, the waves, the faint creak of the canoe, it's all blending into a lullaby. You're sinking deeper, the stars blurring into soft lights above. You're not a wayfinder, but for now, you're carried by these myths, the Pacific cradling you as the stories whisper you towards sleep. You're still rocking gently on the double-hulled canoe, the Pacific's waves a soothing pulse beneath you, the stars above twinkling like they're sharing the myths you just heard. The air's cooler now, carrying a faint tang of salt and seaweed, and the crew's excitement hums as a dark shape looms on the horizon. An island, uncharted by you but known to them. You're about to step onto new shores, your first landing after days at sea. The woven mat under you feels like a friend now, but your legs wobble as you stand, unused to the canoe's sway. You're thrilled but nervous. New land sounds great, but knowing you, you'll probably trip on the first palm route. The mainstream fact is that Polynesian voyagers, around 1000 CE, colonized thousands of Pacific islands, from the Marquesas to Rarotonga, often landing on uninhabited shores to establish new communities. You're gripping the canoe's edge, peering at the island's outline, maybe an atoll with coconut palms swaying in the breeze. The master navigator, calm as ever, steers toward a lagoon, reading the waves like that Madhang stick chart you fumbled with. You try helping with a paddle, but your strokes are so clumsy a crew member teases, "You're stirring soup, not the sea." You laugh, but you're secretly praying you don't capsize on arrival. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some navigators marked new islands by planting a specific tree, like breadfruit, as a welcome mat for future voyagers. You're handed a small breadfruit sapling to carry ashore, its leaves tickling your arm. You're not sure if you're supposed to plant it or just hold it like a trophy, but it feels important. Historians still argue whether this tree planting was a practical marker or a spiritual act to claim the land for ancestors. You're not sure, but you're clutching the sapling like it's your ticket to not getting lost again. The canoe glides into the lagoon, the water turning turquoise as it shallows. You feel the hull scrape coral, a soft crunch that makes you wince. The master's unfazed, guiding the canoe to a sandy beach. You step off, barefoot, the sand warm and gritty under your toes. It's your first solid ground in days, and you're dizzy, like a sailor who forgot how to walk. The crew's already unloading, baskets of taro, dried fish, those coconuts you packed. You think back to the food prep, how every bite was planned for this moment. You're starting to get why every detail, from stars to saplings, mattered. The island's alive with sounds, birds chirping, waves lapping, palm fronds rustling. You're told to help plant the breadfruit sapling, and you dig a hole, your hands clumsy in the soft earth. A young crew member, the woman navigator, shows you how to pat the soil, her hands quick and sure. You try joking, "Will this tree have my name on it?" She grins. "Only if it grows as slow as you paddle." You laugh, but you're in awe of her ease, her connection to this new land. You remember the myths of Maui and Matariki, how they tied you to the sky. This sapling feels like a new myth, rooting you to the earth. The master gathers the crew, chanting a soft thanks to Kanaloa for the safe landing. You join in, your voice shaky but earnest, echoing that ceremony on the canoe. The island feels like a gift, its green hills and coral reefs a world away from the endless sea. You're starting to relax, the sand's warmth seeping into you. The crew's setting up camp, their voices a gentle hum, and you're sinking into the moment, the ocean's rhythm still in your bones. You think of the matang, the swells, the stars, all leading here. Your eyelids droop, the breeze carrying a faint coconut scent. You sit by the sapling, the soil still clinging to your hands. The master's voice drifts over, describing the island's shape, how it'll fit into their mental maps. You're not a wayfinder, but you feel the weight of this moment, a new home, a new story. The crew's laughter, the waves' soft pulse, the stars peeking through twilight, it's all blending into a lullaby. You lean back, the sand cradling you, and let the island's calm pull you closer to sleep, the Pacific whispering that you've arrived. You're settled on the new island now, the warm sand under you, and the faint rustle of palm fronds overhead, blending with the ocean's distant hum. The breadfruit sapling you planted stands nearby, a tiny claim on this uncharted shore. The crew's bustling, setting up camp, but the master navigator pulls you aside to talk about something deeper. How Polynesian navigators preserve their star knowledge, passing it down like a sacred heirloom. You're sitting on a fallen log, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and seaweed, trying to focus despite the island's lulling calm. Your modern brain's used to apps and manuals, but here, it's all memory and voice, and you're wondering if you'd forget the stars before breakfast. The mainstream fact is that Polynesian navigation, around 1000 CE, relied on oral traditions, chants, stories, and genealogies to transmit complex star paths and wave patterns across generations. You're listening to the master recite a chant, his voice low and rhythmic, listing stars like Hokulea and islands like Rarotonga. It's the same kind of lullaby-like song you learned back in training, but now it's longer, denser, packed with routes and currents. You try repeating a line, but you mangle the syllables, and a nearby crew member chuckles. You're inventing new islands. You laugh, but you're humbled. These chants are a lifeline, and you're barely keeping up. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some navigators use body movements, like hand gestures or dances, to mimic star paths or swells, helping apprentices memorize routes through muscle memory. The master demonstrates, his hands tracing arcs like Matariki's rise. You try it, flailing like you're directing traffic, and the crew roars with laughter. Historians still argue whether these movements were formal teaching tools or just mnemonic aids for restless students. You're not sure, but waving your arms feels oddly intuitive, like you're dancing with the sky. You're starting to see why this knowledge stuck. It's not just words, it's a whole body story. The master sits beside you, his voice a steady hum, explaining how families guarded these chants like treasures. A single mistake could send a canoe off course, so elders drilled apprentices until they could recite star paths in their sleep. You think back to the Matang stick chart, how it mapped swells in your hands. These chants do the same for the mind, etching routes into memory. You try another line, your voice shaky but earnest, and the master nods. Better, keep singing. You're not sure if he's encouraging you or just keeping you awake, but the chant's rhythm is pulling you in like a wave you can't resist. You glance at the crew, some weaving mats, others carving wood, all humming bits of the same chant. The woman navigator from earlier is teaching a younger apprentice, her hands guiding his to mimic a star's arc. You're struck by the community here. Knowledge isn't hoarded, it's shared, sung, lived. You remember the ceremony for Kanaloa, how it bound you to the sea, and the myths of Maui tying you to the stars. These chants are another bond, linking generations. You try the hand gesture again, tracing Hokupa's path, and it feels right, like you're sketching the sky and the air. The master shifts to a story about a lost chant, one that guided canoes to a forgotten island. He says it's still out there, maybe sung by descendants on some distant shore. You're intrigued but sleepy, the island's calm seeping into you. Historians debate whether some chants were deliberately hidden to protect sacred roots. You're not sure, but the idea of secret songs feels like a mystery you'd love to chase, if you weren't so ready to nap. The master jokes softly, "Don't dream the chant wrong, or you'll sail to the stars." You smile, but the log's warmth and the chant's cadence are making it hard to stay awake. The camp's settling now, the crew's voices a soft murmur, blending with the waves and rustling palms. You're still clutching that imaginary star path, your hands tracing arcs in your lap. The master's chant loops in your mind, a soothing thread connecting you to the sea, the stars, the island. You're not a wayfinder, but you feel the weight of their knowledge, carried in voices and gestures. The sand soft under you, the air cool, and the Pacific's rhythm pulls you deeper. The chant's melody whispering you towards sleep. You're still on this new island, the soft sand under your feet and the rustle of palm fronds overhead blending with the ever-present hum of the Pacific. The breadfruit sapling you planted is a quiet sentinel nearby, and the crew's camp is alive with the clatter of tools and soft laughter. But now, the master navigator's tone shifts, his voice heavier as he talks about a turning point, the arrival of European outsiders. You're sitting on a smooth boulder, the air thick with the scent of salt and blooming hibiscus, listening to how these newcomers disrupted Polynesian navigation. Your modern brains used to change, but here, it feels like a storm brewing, and you're wondering if you'd have handled it better than you did, that squall at sea. The mainstream fact is that European contact, starting around the 16th century, profoundly impacted Polynesian navigation, with explorers like Captain Cook introducing maps, compasses, and colonial pressures that eroded traditional practices. You're picturing a European ship on the horizon, its sails stark against the stars you've learned to trust. The master describes how outsiders marveled at Polynesian canoes, but dismissed their star-based methods as primitive. You wince, thinking of your own struggles with the Matang stick chart. Primitive, your foot. A crew member notices your frown and teases. You'd trade your stars for a compass, huh? You laugh, but you're starting to feel protective of this way-finding world. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Polynesian navigators tried using European sextants, only to find them clunky compared to their memorized star paths. The master holds up an imaginary sextant, mimicking its awkward weight, and you try it, feeling like you're juggling a brick. You're both chuckling, but there's a sadness in his eyes. Historians still argue whether these European tools were adopted willingly or forced by colonial demands. You're not sure, but you can imagine the frustration. Your phone's GPS glitches enough to make you miss those chants you learned. The master leans back, his voice soft but edged, recounting how European maps redrew the Pacific, renaming islands and ignoring ancestral roots. You think of Hokulea and Meitariki, how their stories tied you to the sky. Now, you're picturing those names replaced with Port Whatever on a parchment map. The crew's quiet, some weaving mats, others sharpening tools, but you sense their unease. You try joining them, twisting coconut fiber into rope, but your knots are a mess. A young crew member grins. You're tying history backward. You laugh, but the master's words linger. European contact didn't just bring tools, it brought missions, diseases, and rules that sidelined wayfinders. You glance at the sea, where the canoe rests, its double hulls gleaming in the moonlight. The master says some navigators hid their knowledge, teaching chants in secret to keep them alive. You remember those hand gestures you mimicked, tracing star paths in the air. That secrecy feels like resistance, a quiet fight to save the sky's stories. You're starting to get why this matters. These weren't just roots, they were a way of life. The master jokes softly, their compasses spun, but our stars stayed true. You smile, but the weight of loss settles in, like salt in a wound. The camp's rhythm is slower now, the crew's voices blending with the waves. You're still on that boulder, the sand cool between your toes, thinking of the women navigators, the myths, the matang, all threatened by outsiders who didn't understand. You try humming that chant again, the one about Rarotonga, and it feels like defiance, a thread to the past. The master nods, his eyes on the stars, as if they're still guiding him. You're not a wayfinder, but you feel their resilience, their refusal to let the sea's secrets fade. The island's calm wraps around you, the Pacific's pulse lulling you, pulling you closer to sleep. The breeze carries a faint coconut scent, and you lean back, the boulder's curve cradling you. The master's voice is a soothing drone, recounting a navigator who sailed one last voyage under stars, defying European charts. You're sinking into the moment, the camp's soft hum and the ocean's rhythm weaving together. The stars above feel like old friends now, untouched by outsiders. You're carried by their light, the island's warmth, and the faint echo of chants, all whispering you toward a gentle, starry slumber. You're still on this island, the Pacific's soft waves lapping at the shore, the breadfruit sapling you planted standing quietly nearby. The camp settled into a gentle rhythm, with the crew's voices fading into murmurs as they weave mats or carve wood under the starlight. The master navigator sits beside you on the sand, his gaze fixed on the sky, reflecting on the enduring legacy of Polynesian wayfinders. The air is cool, scented with salt and faint hibiscus, and the island's calm is wrapping you like a blanket. You're thinking about the stars, the matang, the chants, how they've carried you this far. Your eyelids are heavy, and the ocean's hum is pulling you towards sleep, but the master's voice keeps you tethered, just for a little longer. The mainstream fact is that Polynesian navigation, thriving around 1000 CE, left a lasting cultural legacy, revived in the 20th century through projects like the Hokulea voyaging canoe, which sailed traditional routes to preserve wayfinding knowledge. The master speaks of modern Polynesians relearning star paths, chanting the same songs you stumbled through. You're picturing that canoe, not unlike the one you're on, sailing today's Pacific. You try humming a chant, your voice soft and shaky, and the master smiles. You're almost a wayfinder. You laugh, hardly, but the thought warms you, like the sand under your back. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some modern navigators use apps to double-check star positions, blending ancient chants with digital tools. You chuckle, imagining yourself checking Matariki on a phone app mid-voyage. Your kind of navigation. Historians still argue whether this blend strengthens or dilutes traditional wayfinding. You're not sure, but it feels like a bridge, connecting you to those who sailed centuries ago. You think back to the women navigators, the myths of Maui, the storm you survived, all part of a legacy that's outlasted European compasses. The master points to Hokulea in the sky, its reddish glow steady. He says its name lives on in that modern canoe, a symbol of resilience. You remember the Matang stick chart, how its sticks mapped swells you felt. That knowledge, sung and danced through generations, is still alive, taught on islands like this one. You're sinking deeper into the sand, the crew's soft chatter blending with the waves. The master's voice is slower now, each word stretching like a long, gentle breath. You're starting to see the stars not just as guides but as ancestors, watching over every voyage, then and now. You glance at the crew, their silhouettes soft against the firelight. The woman navigator's teaching a young apprentice, her hands tracing star paths just like you tried. You feel a quiet pride, as if you're part of their story, even if you're just a clumsy land dweller. The master jokes, "You'll dream of stars tonight, not screens." You smile, too sleepy to reply, but he's right. The sky's taken hold of you. You think of the ceremony for Kanaloa, the breadfruit sapling, the chants, each a thread in a tapestry that's still being woven. The Pacific's rhythm is your heartbeat now, steady and slow. The island's calm is absolute, the air soft with the scent of earth and sea. You're lying back now, the sand cradling you, the stars blurring into a gentle glow. The master's voice fades, softer, softer, each word a whisper, carrying you further from the shore of wakefulness. The waves roll in, their rhythm a lullaby, echoing the chants, the swells, the stories. You're adrift in a sea of stars, the canoes sway a distant memory, the island a warm embrace. Your breath slow, matching the ocean's pulse, and the legacy of the wayfinders wraps around you, guiding you gently into dreams. Wind down. You're sinking deeper now, the island's warmth holding you close. The Pacific's soft waves a distant song. The stars above fade into a gentle shimmer, their light blending with the glow of your own sleepy thoughts. You're no longer on the canoe, no longer tracing Hokulea or clutching a matang. You're just here, wrapped in the calm of this moment, the sand soft beneath you, the air cool and sweet. The crew's voices are gone, replaced by the whisper of palm fronds, the sigh of the sea. Every chant, every star, every swell you learned, they're part of you now, tucked safely in your mind as you drift. Let the ocean carry you. Let the sky cradle you. There's no need to steer, no need to worry. The Wayfinder's legacy lives on, and you're safe in its embrace. Sleep now, softly, deeply, as the Pacific hums you into a peaceful, starry slumber.